I'd now like to introduce the Reverend Joseph McShane of the Society of Jesus, Regis class of 1967 and the current president of Fordham University, to deliver this evening's keynote address. Please welcome Father McShane.
Before I begin, I have an admission to make, a confession. I'm an easy confessor, by the way. I'm Irish. Therefore, as my brothers and I say with fair regularity, we cry at commercials. So it's a very difficult and emotional thing for me to do this evening. So if I seem to be having a hard time, it's because I am. And if I seem to be having a hard time, pray I get through it. And I mean that quite sincerely. Of those to whom much is given, much is expected. Well then, dearest Lord, teach me to be generous. Teach me to serve you as you deserve, to give and not to count the cost. Father Cesaro, Father Judge, Father Gavin, Father McShane, Mr. Labat, Mr. Minson, and noble hearts all. Ah, fair Regis. My friends, as you know, the problem with Regis has always been that its hype never lived up to the reality of the experience. Now that's saying something. As you know, the Regis name has a way of inspiring a touch of awe whenever it is dropped in the course of a conversation. And let's be honest, Regians can tend to walk with a bit of swagger, knowing that the name has that touch of cachet to it. But let's also be honest and admit that the hype about Regis never really lived up to the experience that we had there. Now, to be sure, Regis was a remarkable experience. It was not, however, an experience for the faint of heart. Nor should it have been. After all, it is a school that has a special mission of educating students who seem to be described well in the words from the Gospel of Luke with which I began my remarks a few moments ago. Those to whom much has been given. It is also, thank God, a school that has never lost sight of the second part of the Lord's statement. Of those to whom God has, for reasons known only to himself, given much, much is expected. Therefore, Regis is a school that has worked mightily to teach its students that the proper response to God's great gifts is not a swaggering arrogance, but rather a deep and humble gratitude. It shows itself both in a broad and celebratory exploration of the world that God has made, and a life of self-emptying generosity that is worthy of the men for others that they all aspire to be. And my friends, as you know, Regis has always had three different teaching staffs devoted to forming men with keen minds and generous hearts. First, the faculty. Second, our classmates. And third, the city itself. And now a word about each one of them. As for the faculty, they never let us rest on the laurels that the outside world was more than willing to throw at us. Quite the opposite. They challenged and cherished us in equal measure. In fact, let's be honest, they were able to challenge us precisely because we knew deep down that they cared deeply for us. But challenge us they did. Under their firm but loving guidance, we learned how to wrestle with ideas and how to take delight in playing with language. We fought physics to a standstill. And we thought that was a win. With them at our side, we made friends with Homer, Virgil, Horace, and Catullus. We were welcomed into that very small fraternity who knew that the secret to a happy life was to be found in the knowledge that ancient Greek had three voices: active, passive, and middle. Who knew? We did, of course. But I think that I could have been a very happy man living with only the active and passive voices in my life. Now, don't get me started in the number of tenses found in the classics. To tell you the truth, tenses made me tense for 4 years. And I was deeply disappointed when I learned that the future perfect referred to a tense and not to canonization. We were taught how to sing the first lines of the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Aeneid to the tune of Stars and Stripes Forever, to experience the power and beauty of dactylic hexameter. Andromoi enepemusa, polutropon hos molapola, planthea petroies, hieron tolies persa. Thank you, Steve Duffy. We hung out with Chaucer, Shakespeare, and Milton. We walked on the wild side with F. Scott Fitzgerald. We sailed with both Melville and Hemingway. We roared and raged with Dylan Thomas. We suffered depression with Eugene O'Neill. Our hearts soared with John the 23rd. We anguished our way through the mysteries of algebra, geometry, trig, and pre-calc. But in the process, our hearts were stretched, our minds expanded, and our horizons broadened. Sometimes at the end of the day, our heads ached. And sometimes we wondered if we were really being prepared to live lives of meaning in the 20th and 21st centuries, or being prepared to become Roman emperors or contestants on Jeopardy. Of course, the faculty were not our only teachers. The lessons they taught us were supplemented by those that we learned from our classmates. Hailing from the splendor of Stuyvesant Town, the exotic reaches of the Rockaways, Bay Ridge, Sheepshead Bay, foreign ports of call like Staten Island and New Jersey, and the leafy precincts of Riverdale, Westchester, and Connecticut, our classmates became dear friends, mentors, and colleagues in the search for wisdom. The suburbanites astounded the city dwellers among us with stories of homes surrounded by lawns and trees. We were dumbstruck. We treated their stories of commutes on ferries or on trains that had romantic and precise departure times with the same awe, or was it disbelief, with which we treated Homer's accounts of Odysseus' travels. I see you had some Staten Islanders in your class. But just remember, I can still give you a jug. In league with them, we ventured out into the city and discovered the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Frick, the MoMA, the Whitney, Lincoln Center, and Central Park. Together, we debated the major issues of the day and some of the minor issues of life at Regis. Into the former category, I would place the lessons in love, service, and compassion that we learned from our service projects in the city. Into the latter category, I would place the morality of selling elevator keys and pool passes to freshmen, and whether or not the members of the Hearn, the Regis equivalent of Skull and Bones, should get varsity jackets. Through it all, over pizza, or on the bus and boat rides to Bear Mountain, our classmates challenged, cajoled, pushed, consoled, and cheered us on. They also inspired us never to settle for things as they are or as they were. Whether by word, deed, and shining example, they always called upon us to push out into the deep. And thanks to them and to the faculty who seemed intent on calling us to a greatness that we never thought we could achieve, we all of us discovered that there is no hunger like the taste of truth, no thirst like the desire for justice, and no greater joy than that which can be found in the service of others. In short, my fellow noble hearts, our intellectual and moral compasses were set at Regis. And at the end, when with a final burst of exuberant and slightly eccentric extravagance, we graduated from high school wearing white dinner jackets, crimson bow ties, and cummerbunds, rather than standard issue caps and gowns, we knew that Regis had given us a peerless but bothersome education. But what do I mean? Simply this. Regis bestowed upon us a desire to seek not just excellence, but bothered excellence. But again, what do I mean? Regis made us men who loved learning, but sent us forth with the blessedly nagging suspicion that we didn't know everything, and the burning conviction that the truly good life is one that is spent in service. We even had a few lines of poetry to describe how we felt as we walked through the tunnel for the last time. Fittingly enough, they are taken from Tennyson's Ulysses, another ancient Greek, by way of a romantic poet's imagination. We Regians were propelled forward with a desire to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Now, every Regian is haunted by the realization that his life was transformed by an unearned gift of pure grace from a woman whom we only knew as the Foundress. We were none of us children of privilege. Far from it. We were and are, however, the adopted sons of generosity. And what boundless, inexplicable generosity it was. Although she never met us, the Foundress loved us. Although she never knew us, she believed in us. Although she never saw us, she nurtured high hopes for us. Ultimately, she and her family gave us all that they had. So that we might have and lead lives filled with meaning and with purpose. Now, I suspect that I'm not the only Regian who has felt a deep desire to thank her personally for all that she did to transform our lives. Therefore, moved by the faith, hope, and love that she had for all of us, this past Thursday, I took an Irish holiday. That is to say, I visited Old or First Calvary Cemetery in Queens to find her grave. After trekking up and down among the ancient graves in a steady rain for 45 minutes without finding the family vault, I was on the verge of giving up and going home. Then suddenly I turned a corner and came upon a stately columned mausoleum that bore her family name. I put down my umbrella, held my breath, and peered through the windows of the bronze doors of the mausoleum, and there I saw it, her name. I trembled. Then I stepped back. And stepping back, I prayed. Now, to be honest with you, I was not sure if I was praying to her or praying for her, but I can tell you this, I spoke to her from the heart and not from my heart alone. No, I told her that I spoke for every boy whose life had been changed forever and transformed by the unmerited gift that she had given to him. I spoke for every noble heart who had ever walked through that tunnel and discovered an entirely new world in and through the school that she had founded in memory of the husband who awaits the resurrection just next to her. And on your behalf, I thanked her. I assured her that even though we had never known her name, we always tried to live lives worthy of the love that she had for us. the faith that she had in us, and the hopes that she nurtured for all of us. Irish. I cry at commercials. I also asked her to pray that we might always be sons of fair Regis in deed, and not only in name. That is to say, I asked her to pray that, like herself, we might know how to give and not to count the cost, to labor and not to ask for any reward, save that of knowing that we do God's will and do it for his greater glory. As I was praying, the rain stopped, and the leaden skies over Queens cleared slightly. My work, however, was not done. Before leaving, I bent down and left a small gift in your name on the threshold of her tomb, a bouquet of red and white roses. I bowed in homage, reverently touched the door of the mausoleum, and raised my hand to make the sign of the cross, to bless the woman who had filled our lives with blessings beyond measure. Then I turned and walked back to the car through the quiet graveyard with an even greater sense of gratitude than I had had when I began my pilgrimage. And my friends, my end is my beginning, just as it was with T.S. Eliot. Of those to whom much is given, much is expected. As Regians, and therefore as sons of a great generosity, our response to these words must always be, teach me to be generous.
Thank you, Father McShane. You know, if the Jesuit thing doesn't work out, I think you have a future in public speaking.